We are studying Bhaja Govindam, this beautiful scripture by Adi Shankaracharya, a beautiful hymn, and we are looking at it verse by verse, word by word. And we are in extreme anticipation of the chains that will be let go, the chains of bondages to samsara, to materialistic living and identity, as these beautiful words enter our being. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Samprapte san nihite kale, nahi nahi rakshati dukkena karane, mood jahi dhanagama Trishnam, kuru satputhim manasi vitrishnam, yallabhase nij karamopatam, vittam tena vinodaya chittam, bhaja govindam, bhaja govindam, govindam bhaja mudamate, bhaja govindam, bhaja govindam, govindam bhaja mudamate. Let us now look at verse 2 that I just chanted. Mood jahihi dhanagama Trishna, kuru sat buddhim manasi vitrishnam, yallabhase nij karmopatam, vittam tena vinodaya chittam. O deluded mind, give up your thirst to amass wealth and instead devote yourself, O mind, to the thoughts of the real of Govinda. Be content with what comes through your dharmic actions in the normal course of things. And through this, enjoy a happy state of being. So in this verse, in fact, the first 6 to 7 verses are really a description of our everyday life with our everyday mind. In the first verse, we understood how we are caught up in acquiring intellectual knowledge and secular knowledge and material knowledge to become better, bigger versions of ourselves in samsara, in our material sphere of existence. But that this knowledge, unfortunately, shall not reveal us a path to freedom and bliss and liberation at that moment of death, because there is that tiny sliver of potential, because our thoughts lead us to our next life. And if we have not remembered Govinda, which we do not, we're just caught up. Our mind is filled with rules of grammar and rules of religion and rules of decorum and rules of society and rules of relationships, but never the real, never the truth, never the self. Now, in the second verse, very gently, Shankaracharya, the great Acharya, is describing the mati or the mind of the one who is completely deluded with moha. Moha is the state of delusion. And what does the mind which is overcome with moha or delusion look like? What are its symptoms? What are its lakshana or symptoms? It seeks wealth. And this is not ordinary seeking of wealth for comfort or need fulfillment. This is just a desire for more and more wealth. And this wealth could be the money in the bank. This wealth could be the acquiring of branded cars and equipments and technology. This wealth could be in the form of the number of bedrooms in your house, a bigger house, a more spacious house, everything more. And this is a lakshana, a symptom that a deluded mind is always scheming, planning, thinking, and when left alone, lamenting that it doesn't have enough. The non-enoughness of a material kind is the number one symptom of moha. In Sanskrit, the word is Trishna. Trishna is not ordinary desire. Ordinary desire is called in Sanskrit ichha. I-C-H-C-H-A, ichha. And it doesn't matter if you know Sanskrit or not. Desire in itself is not the issue. An earthworm desires, a rabbit desires, a bird desires, a human body desires for food, for comfort, for touch, for security. But Trishna is desire plus greed, desire plus a virtual decision that I shall never be enough unless I have more and more and more. It just never is enough. So it's like it's been compared. Trishna has been compared to a fire. And no matter how much you try to fulfill it by feeding it a log of wood or feeding it a teaspoon of ghee, it doesn't calm down with that. The flame grows with whatever you feed it. It devours it and then it wants more. So this is Trishna is the flame of greed. And what Shankaracharya is telling us is that, oh mind, oh mind, oh Mudha mind is the one that has moha or delusion. Why does it have delusion? Because it is constantly hankering for more and more wealth. And from wealth here, I mean all the things that make us materially bigger, materially sounder, materially rich, materially, in comparison to others, superior. And because of that, it has given birth to Trishna. It has given birth to Trishna. So it is ichha, desire, plus greed, which is known as lobha. Desire plus greed, desire plus never enoughness. So Trishna is a crazy making desire. It's an insatiable desire, and we're all walking around with it. All of us, forever working on our resumes, forever working out the next thing that we are going to do, the plus X that we are going to spin in our short time on earth to fulfill our Trishna. So very beautifully, the Acharya says that, oh, my deluded mind, see through this, first of all, this Trishna for dhana. Now we have a whole goddess of wealth known as Lakshmi, and she teaches 16 forms of wealth. But what our ordinary deluded mind, our moha-filled Mudha mind forgets is that none of these 16 forms of wealth are ever enjoyed by a mind that does not cultivate the dharma of santosha or contentment. You can have Goddess Lakshmi living in your house, blessing you with every possible joy, fulfillment, prosperity. But if you have been struck with Trishna or discontentment, you would never feel abundant. You would never feel enough. You would always feel unhappy, miserable, inadequate. And you might have felt it. If you're really honest with yourself, and the study of Shastra is a time to be honest with ourselves. And all this Trishna leads us down alleys we need not have gone down. It makes us compromise our life in so many ways. So the first thing we have to do really is to see through this Trishna, to set it aside. And how do we do that? How do we do that? Mood jahihi dhanagama trishnam. First of all, O moodamati, O deluded mind, see through the Trishna of dhana acquisition, material acquisition, see through it. And how do you see through it? How does it pierce through you and finally let you, what happens that you can be free of that Trishna? Kuru Sat Buddhim Manasi Vitrishnam. This is the second line. Cultivate Sat Buddhi. Sat means, comes from truth. Sat means Satyam, the ultimate reality. Sat means Govinda. Sat means Ishvara. Sat means the higher self. Sat means the universal order. You've not suddenly appeared in a biological body to chase material things, just powered from within by the monster of a Trishna that shall never be fulfilled. Cultivate Sat Buddhim, cultivate the right awareness. Loosely speaking, cultivate the right understanding. Where? Manasi, in the mind. So that you can become with Trishna. When you add VI, it's like you become free of that Trishna. So that you can, so this Sat Buddhi, Buddhi means intellect, but the Buddhi, ordinary intellect, can often be stained and colored by society, social media, news channels, billboards. This is our reality. It tells us that you must have completed your high school, you must go to a certain college, you must finish certain courses, you must have a certain professional degree, you must have a certain house in a certain neighborhood, you must be married by certain such time with a certain gender and have children with a certain pedigree, and then you have made it. This is all Trishna, acquiring more and more material labels in the never-ending chase across the whole universe, being born again and again in different bodies, only for the Trishna to strike again. It follows you from lifetime to lifetime and sneaks up on you. And before you know it, you're this dark hole needing things and acquisitions and name and fame to fulfill you. But if we cultivate, if we act from, Kuru means to act from, Sat Buddhim, Sat means Sattva, Sat means light, Sat means illumination, and Sat doesn't come from ordinary teachings. It definitely doesn't come from books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, or How to Work a Room, or How to Be on Top of Your Game, or How to Be the Alpha, or How to Have the Power, and How to Be a Millionaire in 15 days, or How to Look Young Forever, or How to Have Your Breasts Tight and Perky at 60. These are also teachings going around on earth and rather popular. The Buddhi, Sat Buddhi develops from teachings of Shastra, teachings of these kind that are not asking anything of you, but simply saying, here, listen to these, contemplate upon them, and set yourself free from that Trishna. That's weighing your heart down. That's making you feel small. That's making you feel never enough. That's torturing you from within. This is preventing you from experiencing Goddess Lakshmi within your being. So Sata Buddhim comes from the cultivation of, for example, even this study, the Bhaja Govindam. It is a kind of cultivation of the Sata Buddhi, so that the Buddhi can separate itself from its typical endeavors to finally take stock and say, wow, do I really need to be so driven by Trishna? And ultimately it becomes free of Trishna through knowledge. And then yal labhase, yat labhase, you obtain nij karma, nij karma through one's own yal labhase nij karmopatam vittamate navinodaya chittam. Then when you are free of this push, 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 pull, 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 and all that driven behavior to acquire material fulfillment, you're at last free. And when you are free, then you can simply enjoy the wealth, the material comfort, the wealth that comes to you from your normal work in the normal course of things. Some of that will be the gift of working now and generating wealth, and some of it will be from past life karmas that transform into some support for you. And it is enough. You become comfortable in that. That is the way to Govinda, is to separate yourself from this hyperactivity of the mind, the hyper worrying, thinking, planning, scheming, comparing, being envious, being jealous, being over workaholics, and all of that. And understanding the difference between need and want. Need is Icha, want is Trishna. And it is said in the Vedic tradition that if there are 7 billion human beings on earth today, then Mother Earth has more than enough to meet the Icha or the needs of every human being. And of course, animals and birds who are not even demanding anything. But she has enough resources to meet the needs of every human being. None would be needy of food or shelter or clothes. But she does not have enough to meet the Trishna or the hyper greed of even one human being. She cannot meet the desire, the greed of even one human being. And you can imagine how many human beings on earth are roaming around with full-blown Trishna within their bosoms. And that is why they are staking all the resources. And countless human beings are hungry, underclothed, not warm in winter, without shelter and burning summers. Because all what was due to them has been taken up by the greedy humans, greedy nations, greedy governments, greedy corporations. And so when we are on a spiritual path, it's not just about judgment of others, but when we are on a spiritual path, because I assume that if you're studying this with me and you're listening to me, then you are on a spiritual path. Then the tradition is talking to you through these words and saying, can you, O Muramati, can you, O deluded one, let go of that at last? Stop, stop. Whatever is coming to you in a natural way is enough, more than enough. You might even have enough to share. So you can let go of your wants and you can become quite reassured that this universe, Govinda, Ishvara, shall meet your needs. So we have to gradually cultivate the right thinking, and this right thinking, this discernment is known as viveka. And viveka is using the faculty of the buddhi in the right direction. And I'll talk more about it. A lot of us are really smart, but we are using it to build, amass wealth, amass power, amass contacts, but we're empty inside and we have lost compassion. And some of us die of heart attacks, lonely, or we develop, or we commit suicide, or we torture others. But if we can simply cultivate, so we take that intellect and we cultivate it towards Sat Buddhi or Sattva Buddhi, or we really bring enlightening ideas like you are receiving now to say, wow, I might have spent my last several lifetimes, including my last 10, 20, 30, 40 years chasing Trishna. Whoa, I can now just relax. Therefore, yal labhase nij karmopatam. Therefore, be restful, be content with your dharmically earned wealth. And be and you can become quite fulfilled with that. We know the means happy. We know the means happy. And chitta means another word for mind. So your mind can be quite happy. We have a tradition, the Vedic tradition is of not mega gurus with rich carriages or Rolls Royce driving them around. Very simple, but comfortable. Life is simple. This is what is coming to me, and this is beautiful. It's ordained by Govinda, by Ishwar. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. Moda jahi dhanagama Trishna. So, O deluded one, you're chasing wealth from Trishna. Kuru Sat Buddhim Manasi Vitrishnam. Cultivate Sat Buddhi to be free of that Trishna. Yallabhase Nija Karamopatam. Be satisfied with your own daily duty. Yeah. Vittam tena vinodaya chetam, and then see how your mind becomes happy, because this happiness is ordained by Govinda. Stop the chasing, stop the frustration. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamati. It is the duty of the teachers, the acharyas of this tradition, to bring forth knowledge that helps an everyday person cultivate an enlightened buddhi, a sattvic buddhi, a knowledge-filled buddhi. It is not enough to simply have a pure buddhi. We can remove it from material aspirations, but it needs knowledge so that it can come to its true potential and come to the feet of Govinda. And once again, Govinda is not just the name of one version of God in Hinduism, but Govinda is the all-pervading consciousness, the divine power that transcends universes and yet is immanent in every particle of it. So let us cultivate some Sat Buddhi, shall we? Shall we cultivate some Sat Buddhi? So now, to help you further let go of Trishna, let me present you with some core ideas from the Upanishads. When Shankaracharya wrote his hymns, they were not in a bubble. They were not something that was simply emerging from his own mind, but we call it Satabuddhi or Shastra Buddhi. My buddhi, the more it is, the more it was influenced by Shastra teachings from my teacher. And when I teach you, the more I listen to the Shastra again, the buddhi doesn't think based on likes and dislikes and impulses and societal messages. It thinks based on the sat, the truth, the reality presented by the Vedic Shastra. So that is the beautiful thing. And so in this Shastra or in the scriptures, there is a core concept of the path of Shreyas versus the path of Preyas. Shreyas, Shreyas or Shreyaha, and Preyas, Preyas or Preyaha. Both paths are there, but for the spiritual seekers who want liberation from samsara, from suffering, and truly want the Vinodaya Chittam, a happy mind, filled with the blessings of Govinda, then we are urged to choose the path of Shreyas. What is that? It is similar to the path of Bhogi versus Yogi, which I introduced in part 1 of this series. You can go back and review it. But let us look at these two paths. But the very fact that the Upanishads are presenting a path, does it mean that we actually have a choice? Because many people say, it's all karma, it's all determined. It's not true. While karma is your destiny in terms of the props in your life, who are your parents, who are the main people you'll encounter, who will be the positive people, who will be the negative people, what will be the positive circumstances, what will be the negative. Some major props are predestined, but you have 400% liberty to respond to these circumstances, good, bad, dark, lovely, based on a buddhi that is completely caught up in Trishna, or in a buddhi that has become illumined with knowledge, Sat Buddhi. You can respond by mindlessly walking down the path of bhoga, or constant grasping, constant suffering, or you can go through the path of yoga, which is of discernment and inner freedom. From that same, deeper to this, even words bhoga, yoga are the path of Shreyas and Preyas mentioned in the Upanishads, and yes, we'd have choice. Unlike animals, which are under the care of Govinda, Ishvara, but they lead out their lives in an instinctive way, in a programmed way. They eat, they propagate, they live, they die. They don't have to make any plans. They're always innocent in that sense. We humans have a special purpose in the universe because we have free will, and we can respond or react. We can remain unconscious or choose to become semi-conscious and then conscious and then superconscious. It's really our journey. And in fact, these kind of teachings like Bhaja Govindam and my other Vedic Shastra teaching are for people who are accepting their free will as humans, because only then they can change their future. Others would think, well, my zodiac sign says I'm not supposed to be happy, or I'm a victim of abuse or racism or something, so now I'll never recover. While these are all real time hurts, free will can choose us to rise beyond any hurt, beyond any sorrow, to become a balm for the whole universe. It's really up to us. In the first, we come across the concept of Shreyas and Preyas, very properly given, is in Katha Upanishad. And in this Upanishad, a young boy persistently goes to meet the god of death, Yama, and insists upon a meeting. And then asks, the Yama wants to get rid of him and says, I'll give you elephants, and I'll give you palaces, and I'll give you castles. But he says, no, I want knowledge. I want knowledge. And so then there was a beautiful dialogue between the god of death and this young seeker. So then Yama, the god of death, says that both the good and the pleasant approach the thinking person. The wise person examines them thoroughly, discerns between the two, and prefers the good over the pleasurable one. But the ignorant one chooses the pleasant for the sake of the body and the senses, and forgets about what is good in the long term. Now, good and pleasant have different impacts on our soul's destiny. They have completely different objectives in our life. When pleasure comes in our life, its one purpose is to keep us tethered in samsara, in the ocean of virtual Trishnas never fulfilled. We all know it, that one bite in cheesecake is not the end. You must have a second bite and a third bite. And often those pleasurable bites lead us to the disruption of our diet, to the disruption of our health goal, to the disruptions of all kinds of things, because it all began with that one bite in the cheesecake. It's an example. Pleasure pulls us, I'm not going to say sin, but it pulls us into a loop, a never-ending loop of constantly needing to pleasure the senses. And the senses, the five senses have been compared to in a bhogi or in a person who is following the path of pleasures as mini thugs. They usurp our sovereignty. They run away with our decision. We may have decided to be on a diet or become healthy, but our tongue usurps that. We may have thought that we are only going to hear good things, but our ear listens to gossip and slander, and it usurps our intention to be pure. We decide that we only want to speak pure things and never slander someone or backbite, but we find that our tongue is doing that anyway. So our tongue robs us of our purity. So this way, our sense organs are like mini bullies within our being, and they capture the soul and they force it to go in a certain direction. In fact, in the same Upanishad, these senses have been compared to wild horses and that are tethered to a carriage, and the carriage is being the rein is held in the in the hands of a mind and intellect. But when it's weak, when it doesn't have right knowledge, the horses go wherever they want, and the person who's sitting on the carriage is the soul, and then the soul laments and says, where have I landed up? Due to my unconscious needing to be touched and to touch, I'm in a relationship that I'm no longer respected in. Due to my need to eat or speak unconsciously, here I am in these difficult situations. Self-created suffering perpetuated by unconscious control of the senses. Whereas our good, the soul's good, this is not a paradigm of sinning versus being holy. This is a paradigm of you versus you. You having a mastery over your senses and choosing what's right for you versus you letting your senses dominate your life. If the senses dominate your life, your whole life would be just running after pleasures, including wealth, and whatever you think will give you pleasure, and running away from whatever you think will not. But if you're really choosing the good, the truth, the real, then you will rein in your senses. And even to show up for this session, whether live or whether on YouTube, it takes your tethering of your senses to not constantly move your fingers to check out other videos or to check your social media messages while listening to me. That also takes a reining in of the senses. See how restless your senses make you. And your soul had manifested in human body to realize its godly Ishvara Govinda potential, but instead it just simply is pulled down into the flames of seething flames of Trishna or greed-filled desires that make you feel inadequate. So in Sat Buddhi, we want to understand that maybe your soul doesn't need that branded watch. Maybe your soul doesn't need it. Maybe your soul it needs a watch. It needs to tell time, but it doesn't need to tell time on a branded watch. Maybe your soul needs a vehicle, but it doesn't need to work two jobs to pay for a very expensive vehicle. Maybe it's enough to go back into needs versus desire. So it's the senses which they look at billboards or they go to the mall or they go and see other people partying and living it up, and it feels like I must do the same. But is that really something you deeply want? Is that what you were feeling at age like 2 months or 3 months? Like, let me just grow up and go to the mall and buy the most expensive watch and wear it and feel good about myself? Was that your agenda? Or has that become your agenda? So you want to bring your senses in, and that's why we meditate. Just close your eyes for a brief moment and let my voice simply soothe you back into your heart. Let your hands rest comfortably, one on top of another, right or left, one on top of another. Just rest on your thighs. Pull in. There is some presence within you. What does it want? So continuing on our journey of Shreyas versus Preyas, which is why we want to let go of this Trishna of dhana, wealth, and material identifiers of success at any cost. And we move towards now understanding the difference between goal setting. So there are 4 human goals which are worthy. And, in other classes, I've explained the importance of the goal of artha, which is financial well-being, the goal of kama, which is sexual and sensual well-being. But there are other goals besides these. There is dharma, which is the goal of being ethical, compassionate, and kind, just becoming better versions of ourselves. And then there is the goal of moksha, which means the goal to find union, yogic union with Govinda, to find the self within, which is the same as a super self. So it's not an ordinary goal. It's not taught by colleges and universities, even in India. Now, generating wealth and generating pleasure for the body, which is karma, these are finite goals, please understand. And even animals have some aspirations towards artha kama. Dharma and moksha are goals that take you towards infinity, towards Govinda, towards your own greater potential. And these are not ordinary goals. These come to you through the Vedic Shastra. So artha and kama, and it's, while these are legitimate goals, but it's exclusive pursuit, which is what people do. I want pleasure, I want to chill out, I want to have fun, what's your life? I want money, I want a house, I want a sexy partner too, I want to have vacations, I want to, it's I wanna, and then it's a list of things that fulfill you materially, artha, and fulfill you sexually and sensually, kama. I want to watch that movie, I want to grab that theater, I want to do this, and this is it. Exclusive pursuit of that, while many religions like to ban it. No, Vedas say they're very legitimate and we must go for it. And in other classes, I've explained why we don't want to neglect them. But in this Bhaja Govindam, which is the highest non-dual teaching, I want to say, exclusive pursuit of artha kama is the path of Preyas. It just relentlessly feeds Trishna. We are not enough our needs. We forget our needs. We only live in the matrix of wants that are insatiable, obsessive, compulsive, have a charge, and they leave us restless and we can't even fall asleep. And you may not have money, you may have one, but it's going to erode you and pull you down. Just one Trishna is enough. One. Because because it's a 0-1 paradigm. Either you have Trishna or you don't. So there's not like, I don't have many Trishnas. One is enough. You can have the big house, you can have the wealth, you can have everything. But if you're attached to it, if you're greedy to it, if you must have it, then you have Trishna. If you can walk away from it, then you don't. When we bring in dharma moksha, we focus more on dharma moksha. Dharma means we don't just change other people, we cultivate a garden of values within ourselves. We become conscious beings, and moksha is we actually study with teachers like myself. We actually close our eyes, we meditate. Then this is the path of Shreyas. The goals of Preyas are many. I must have a house, I must have a boat, I must have a new blue dress, I must have a relationship, I must have it by 2024 because my astrologer said by the end of it I will have a soulmate in my. These are all many, 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 many finite goals of Preyas. Once again, Vedas don't shame us for it, but they say if you stay there exclusively, and then that is the path of Preyas. It's going to keep you in the virtual world of Trishna and samsara. Whereas the infinite goal or the goal of Shreyas is only one, to come in and to find Govinda, a self within Atman, Purusha. The goal of Preyas is money, status, fame, name, position, bags, property, X, Y, Z. The goal of Shreyas, infinity, boundless in inner expansion. Outer simplicity, maybe, but inner fullness, inner abundance, inner communion with the divine feminine. Inner, inner. So outwardly, through prayers, we may find fame and victory in sports and politics and society and organization and this and that. But in the path of Shreyas, Bhaja Govinda, we find immortality. We find the truth of who we are. In the path of prayers, never enough. In fact, if you start feeling enough, if you're not in the rat race, they say, then you decay. The world forgets you. It's just not enough not to be in the prayers race. It's important to be in Shreyas. There you feel complete. And the world comes to you. In the path of prayers, we achieve the body and its pleasures, and we know its pleasure zones, and we take over the world, and we have wealth. But in the path of Shreyas, we find Govinda, we find Ishvara. So we can choose infinite over finite, Shreyas over Preyas, yoga over bhoga, spiritual over material. And we can truly develop that viveka. This is all the cultivation of viveka, the right discernment. Why am I showing up even for Bhaja Govindam? Because I'm cultivating an infinite mindset. I don't want to be feeling so small, captured, and kidnapped by those Trishnas that have been following me around. I want to feel my expansiveness, my inner fullness. So Mudamati or the Moha or the Bhaja Govindam, Govindam, Bhaja Mudamate. Who is that Muda? The Muda is the person who, even if they get some inkling of something else persists for them, they remain persistently deluded and persistently, stuck in the material realm, where the spiritual gap can never be fulfilled with anything material. And this is where a hymn like Bhaja Govindam helps. That's why it's known as Moha Mudgara. It's like a hammer. And with each of the verses, Shankaracharya and then my commentary of it shall help dislodge some of that Preyas attributes within us, where we have brought artha and kama, so important. Kama includes all our relationship stress and all our relationship shenanigans and all our time that we spend in cultivating relationships. And I have taught classes on relationships too, and to how to bring Saraswati's blessings into it. But But ultimately, the path of Shreyas then is the path of relationship with Govinda, with that ultimate divine truth within you. Therefore, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam, Bhaja Mudam. Now, majority of people don't say Dharma and moksha are my goals, do they? Most people say they don't know the Sanskrit word artha and kama, but they are all giving a whole list of artha and kama. Material security, material fulfillment, sensual security, romantic security, sexual fulfillment. This is our list. Our magazines, our media, our movie, everything is about artha kama. That is why this entire hymn, Bhaja Govindam, is converting a seeker or reclaiming a seeker lost on the path of Preyas, who may have had a momentary grace by Ishvara, by Govinda, to say, look, this is not the real deal. Come to the path of Shreyas. Come to the path of yoga. And even yoga today, unfortunately, is more about how the body looks, what branded clothes you wear, right? But there is still the deeper yoga awaiting us. This is happening right here. So mind has to be prepared. And so what I'm doing right now through this commentary and through my teaching, free-flowing teaching, is helping to decondition your mind, prepare it to prepare it in such a way when we are kneading the soil, we are picking out all these Preyas, artha kama, like jammed ideas and loosening them up to say, really, are they really that important? And when did you last feel fulfilled from any artha kama achievement? Because no longer did you achieve it, the very next moment, your mind was aspiring for something else. And this is why, if you want to be prepared for that moment of death, to be thinking about infinity so that you can be merged into infinity, so that you can have that so that death is not death but a samadhi, then you really want to reduce the artha kama, money and sex, money and relationships, money and romance thinking, bring it to its normal, bring it to its ordinary vibration, and not as a supersonic vibration of your life. And that is why we are cultivating Sat Buddhi, a pure mind, so that we can truly be someone who is deserving to achieve Dharma Moksha. That is why all Shastra, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Puranas, the Brahma Sutra, the Itihasas, all the teachings, oral and written, the yogic pathways, they are all trying to convert us from the path of Preyas to Shreyas, from a Muda, a deluded one, to a Mumukshu, an awakening one. Sometimes we say, well, I'm a very religious person, so I will achieve Dharma Moksha. Not necessarily. Because in religious institutions, or wherever there is religion, institutionalized religion, we use God, typically it's a male God, as a means for fulfilling our prayers needs. Please, please pass me, please find me my soulmate, please, I need to make wealth. So we're using it for artha kama. We are not using religion to reach infinity. And this is where Upanishads and the teachings of non-dual Vedanta, like through my lineage and through the teachings of teachers like Shankaracharya, these teachings are pre-religion, they are beyond religion. They're in a context of Hinduism, but they are inviting you to an infinity version of divinity and to find that infinity within you so that you can be free of samsara. And that is why, while the first verse introduces the deluded person, 30 more verses are then provided to convert that deluded person into a Sat Buddhi, an awakened person, a yogi. And with this, I would like to conclude my session. Thank you. Jai Maan.
We can now chant our closing prayer together.